Howdy, Aggies. A warm Texas welcome to our series, Distinguished Conversations with Hospitality, Tourism and Recreation Leaders. In these sessions, distinguished industry leaders join us on campus as professor for a day. In a recorded discussion with a faculty leader, they share their leadership journey with a live audience. Later in the day, our distinguished guests engage in roundtable discussions with our students and faculty. The following sessions were recorded in College Station, Texas, before an audience of students and faculty. Each contributor has made her or his mark on hospitality and tourism here in Texas and beyond. The recordings are intended as a lasting inspiration for our majors in hospitality, hotel management and tourism, who are the leaders of the future. Our guest today is Tim Wyman, Vice President of Development with Virgin Hotels. Mr. Wyman is in discussion with University Distinguished Professor Dr. John Crompton. He shares insights about what it takes to be a leader in his particular sector of hospitality and tourism. Please enjoy.
So I'm going to start out, Tim, by taking you through this career and seeing the movement that we get. You know, sometimes people ask students in their senior year, what are your career aspirations? And I always think that's an optimistic question because serendipity plays such a role in that. And where you finish up is rarely where you start.
A few times, yeah.
So, Tim, you graduated in '96 and you went to work. You graduated with a degree in marketing and journalism. And you went to work for Dr. Pepper.
I did.
Why? Doing what?
When I got to A&M and about halfway through it, I decided I wanted to become a sports broadcaster. So that was my initial goal, was to do sports broadcasting.
Okay.
And I actually worked for, I see KAMU here, actually worked for KAMU when I was at A&M. Again,
Okay.
we'll say 20-something years ago, probably longer than that. However, I did an internship at, we'll say, a local sports affiliate in a market around here. Not here, but and it just wasn't a great environment. It was just a negative environment with negative people, and it just wasn't what I wanted to do long term. And so I fell back on the marketing degree I got as well, and I got a job at Dr. Pepper because it was a great job in the city I wanted to be in, which was Dallas.
Okay.
And so I moved to Dallas out of A&M and worked for Dr. Pepper 7-Up, doing 7-Up brand management and kind of research analysis.
Okay. So you moved then, and one of the remarkable things about working for all these companies is, with one small exception, you never left the Metroplex. So despite all of this, and we'll come to that in just a moment, but you went to work for Club Corps from Dr. Pepper. Club Corps are the largest, probably the largest in the world, outfit that works in terms of resorts and golf. They probably have something north of 200 properties they own or operate. They're a huge organization, but they're based in the Metroplex. And so, Tim, golf creeps into your role now. Explain that and what you did at Club Corps.
Well, after a few years of working in the consumer packaged goods business with Dr. Pepper and a brief stint at Frito-Lay, I was bored out of my mind. All I was doing was spreadsheets and teaching salespeople how to understand spreadsheets, and it was just incredibly boring. And that's just not the way I wanted to spend the rest of my career. So I went back to grad school and got an MBA. My initial thought, because I love the game of golf, I played golf, I had this brand research background. I thought, hey, I'm going to go back to grad school and I'm going to get an MBA and go to work for one of the golf manufacturers. TaylorMade, Titleist, Callaway, that's what I figured I was going to do. And about halfway through grad school, a job opened up at Club Corp that was kind of a market research analyst in their market research group. And I took that job and shifted the focus of my career for the rest of my life.
Okay, so you moved into golf. You moved then to a couple of consulting firms. First, PPMG, I can never remember the initials. I remember the company, but when it went to initials, I lost them. But so you started with them?
KPMG for a couple of years. We were doing mostly feasibility and operational type projects for golf course owners, lenders a lot, and then sometimes developers.
So what provoked the move from Club Corps? How did it happen?
Well, one of the things you'll learn about this business is things aren't always good. And in 2000 and, I'm trying to think of the years, but 2002, 2003, the golf industry tanked. It became massively overbuilt.
Yes.
And Club Corp went from about a $2.7 billion company with about 1,000 employees at the corporate office to a $700 million company in 2 years.
Wow.
And simultaneously, I was finishing my grad school degree, getting my MBA.
Okay.
And one day my boss came in and said, hey, all those promises we made to you, they're just never going to happen. You're lucky you have a job. And I was like, yep, I understand that. And so while I was finishing my MBA, I was able to get a job at KPMG because KPMG at the time had a small consulting group specifically focused on the golf business.
Okay, and so from there you moved to another consulting outfit, and this is where you ventured out of the Metroplex.
This is when my
and you
wife
headed
and
for
I,
California.
We moved to Southern California and worked for PricewaterhouseCoopers. And PricewaterhouseCoopers was our biggest competitor in the golf and real estate business, and this one was actually set up correct as part of the global real estate practice for Pricewaterhouse. And I did that for about 3 years in Southern California. That was, again, mostly valuations, appraisals, feasibility studies of golf, resorts, big mixed-use projects, multi-billion-dollar portfolios. It was a much more challenging but also fun job.
And so what you're doing now is moving into an area where, when I look at your resume, you don't have any formal professional training. You're now moving into real estate and investment.
Yep.
And you weren't trained in that area. So how did this come about?
Well, the consulting companies do a good job of training their employees to understand their business. And, even my nephew is a junior here, and he's doing his internship with PricewaterhouseCoopers this coming semester. And they're going to give him a broad spectrum of things to look at within the Pricewaterhouse portfolio of offerings that they have. And so that's similar to, what I did. When I came in, I didn't understand how to appraise a golf resort, but they taught me. They gave me another education. So I heavily recommend consulting firms for people coming out of school because it's like getting a master's.
So what's insightful about that is when you look for a position, you're looking for a very good training program to go with that position, which will
Especially early on in
extend
your
you.
career, absolutely.
Okay, and now you move back from there back to the Metroplex, and you're into hotels.
Right.
Which
Yeah.
is beyond golf now. We've
Yep.
moved across to hotels.
Golf was a lot of fun when I worked for Pricewaterhouse, and I had my buddies that were going to audit tire manufacturers in Arkansas, and I was heading to Hawaii or Cabo. It was a fun job, but one day I was trying to figure out my career and trying to figure out what I was going to do long term, and I looked at the golf world, and there were 17,000 golf courses worldwide, and there were 27,000 hotels in the state of Texas. I was like, there's better opportunities in hotels than there are golf, and they're very similar industry. They operate similarly, they underwrite similarly, so there were a lot of people that kind of made that shift back and forth. So I kind of, started looking for roles that were more specifically focused in hospitality.
And then there was a
hotels.
period in your career where you quickly moved across several companies, and I'm unsure why that is, why you hopped across. How did that occur? I assume at this point that you're in a point where people know who you are, and you're no longer applying for positions, they're offering them to you. Is that where we are?
Fair. I was recruited a few times, yes. But again, to mention on my first point, hospitality and real estate specifically, for those of you who work real estate, there are times where things are really, really good, and there are times where things are really, really bad. And 2006, 2007, 2008 was really, really bad time to be in hotels and real estate. And when you're a hotel real estate guy, it's the worst of both worlds. And so my first development job was with Accor, which for those of you who know is a huge French hospitality company, probably the third or fourth largest hotel company in the world. And I was doing development in the Americas, and then 2006, 2007 happened. Well, 2007, 2008 happened. And so I was downsized and started a company with some of my other friends who were also laid off from their jobs, and did some development and brokerage and things like that. And then when the world came back to normal, that's when I went back and got a normal job.
Okay, and so you went and moved on to Choice Hotels?
I did.
Okay, and you were there an unusually long time for your career.
Me, yeah, almost 7 years.
What were you doing there?
So Choice Hotels, for people's understanding, is more of a mid-scale hotel brand company. So cheaper hotels off the freeway. They launched a more upscale brand called Cambria back in 2000, and they launched it in 2010. I joined them in 2011-ish. When they launched that brand, they put together a small real estate team to go out and actually use their own capital to grow the brand, to go out and buy real estate, to buy dirt, to buy hotels that could be converted to their brand, buy buildings that could be adaptive reused to their brand. And I kind of ran a small team that was out actually spending Choice's own money, which is very rare in the hotel space.
And what kind of budget are you working on now?
At that point?
Time? Yes.
Well, over that 7-year process, I probably executed on over $300 million worth of real estate transactions that were to lead to well over $1 billion, probably $1.4 billion worth of development.
And then you moved on from Choice to Vice President of Investments for another company.
Correct.
And now it's Vice President of Investments.
Correct.
It's not not hospitality and real estate anymore.
No, it is, because all we invested in was hotels.
Okay, all right.
So
So what did that involve?
So that was a group in the Metroplex, again, a smaller hotel owner-operator that at the time owned about 45 to 50 hotels, mostly courtyards and Hilton Gardens and that level of product, moving upwards with every transaction. They had put together about a $100 million fund to invest.
When you say they put together a $100 million fund,
raised.
talk about that a little bit. 100 million sounds like a lot of money together. You just don't put it together. How does that work?
Well, there's a variety of ways to do it. The way they focused on doing it was the slower, longer version where you raise it $500,000 at a time, $250,000 at a time, through friends and family, through investors, through going out and raising the capital. And so you do some of it yourself, you hire brokers to go do some of it, and you create a fund that's specifically focused and guarantees returns on a certain type of hospitality asset.
So now you've been in this business, or at that time you've been in the business for 15 years or so, investing and you had a network of these people.
Absolutely.
And so they don't come to you. You have to go find them, but you know who they are.
Yes. And so starting even in my consulting days, the number one goal I had is to meet as many people as possible, collect as many business cards as possible, create as many relationships as possible, because that's how the job gets done. Not everyone, most Aggies know Hunter Goodwin. He's a good friend of mine. I got to know him in this space because we're both in the hotel space and we've become friends. And that's how you grow in this business. You know people, they reach out to you, whether it's people that do the investing, that do the developing and do the building, but it's also the architects, it's also the interior designers, it's also the attorneys, it's also the consultants. It's a variety of people across this space that we say hospitality. It's a lot of industries and it's a lot of people. And so it's good to know people outside of just your core specific focus.
And so do you have a specific strategies, particularly in the early days when you started, to build that network? Was it a conscious thing you did, or did it just happen? What kind of some of the kind of?
No, it's conscious and it's very purposeful.
How do you go about that?
Part of it is the uncomfortable, awful part of cold calling and just trying to get in front of people. And that's hard and what you do when you're young and it's not fun. But there's also so many opportunities, and there's more today than there ever was, certainly more than there was when I was younger, to network through. I mean, there's 4 big hotel conferences every year. There's probably another dozen small hotel conferences. And then if you mix in the hospitality technology side, if you bring in the hospitality design side, if you bring in the hospitality legal side, there's unlimited amounts of conferences and networking events and opportunities for you to connect with people. There's taking people out to dinner, there's taking people out to golf, there's just a variety of ways that you network in this business, but it's critical and it makes my job so much easier, and it makes finding a new job easier. It's just it's the lifeblood of what I do specifically, because my job is development. It's business development. It's part of my job right now is probably half identifying opportunities, creating opportunities, and half of it is reacting to other people's opportunities. It's uncovering the developer who's considering a resort project on a private island in the Caribbean, and then selling myself. Part of it is, me going and finding an island to go try to buy. Whatever, again, that's just an extreme, but
it's in essence, when they buy you and sell, and you come on board, you bring your network with you.
yes.
And that is valuable to them, apart from your own skills that you bring to the table.
it is a common question from developers who come to us is how we can help them in the other areas of the business that isn't specifically our responsibility, whether that be, again, design, architecture, investments. They want our money, but they want us to invest. They want us to introduce them to other people who have money as well.
Okay, let's move on a little bit now to you ending up here at Virgin after this very eclectic set of responsibilities you've had. How did that come about?
I was approached by their recruiter and was called and said, "Hey, we've got this opportunity. We'd love to talk to you about it." And
so they approached you. Was this headhunters or was it a network?
It was a recruiter for Virgin.
Okay, all right. So one can't talk about I mean, hotels are a new venture for Virgin, but you can't talk about Virgin, as Dr. King indicated, without briefly looking at Branston. So Richard Branston is an extraordinary CEO. He's a publicity machine. Virgin doesn't need to do a whole lot of advertising when they have Branston as CEO. He started life in the record business, and in a very edgy way, he took on, he sold records, undercutting the existing folks, and then he went into managing pop groups. And he picked the edgiest pop groups. So pop groups that nobody else would touch because they offended the establishment. Outfits like the Rolling Stones or the Sex Pistols or these kinds of folks who my parents' generation were just appalled about, you know, which appealed to my generation and so on. And so he has this edginess about him. To everybody's surprise, after he'd made an awful lot of money and opening big record stores, mega stores, he then went into the airline business, which, as far as I know, he had no background in at all. And he took on British Airways, and I worked for British Airways as a consultant for a while. They had 80,000 employees. And this guy from London with no background comes on and attacks them and is enormously successful. He does it by all kinds of stunts, which, you know, he's done the fastest transition across the Atlantic. He got in a speedboat and the darn thing sank and the Navy rescued him, and it's the front page of all the newspapers. And then he did it again, and he did the fastest thing across the ocean. He circulates the world in balloons. He's big into balloons, and he crosses the Pacific in a balloon, and he does all these stunts which are hugely publicized. Wherever he goes, wherever Branston goes, the media follow him. So yes, we get to Virgin Hotels, and I looked up some of Branston's companies, and there's about 40 of them that he's currently got in his stable, and there's about 100 of them which he's been in and out of, So he comes into hotels, Tim, and he starts in Chicago in 2012, and he opens in 2015. He's very late to the game.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming because Virgin Airlines now fly into these places that he's building hotels where his airlines go. Can you elaborate on that theme, this vertical integration?
Yeah, that's a very large piece of why we exist and what our goals are for growth. Yes, much like in the airline business, he came in late in the airline business. He came in late in the hotel space. And I don't want to say came in late. He identified a need. He saw a need in the airline space to do something different, to do something better.
Yes.
And did it. And so he saw the same thing, and he's done that in banking, and he's done that in trains, and he's done that in space travel, and he's done a lot of industries. Well, he did the same thing in hotels. He saw, a staleness to the industry, a staleness to the quality of assets, and he said, I can do something different and do something better, and I can service my existing customers that fly with me, that take trains with me, well, we didn't have our cruise ships at the time, but that was in the works. And so, yes, it is a key part of why we exist is to service our existing customers. And so part of my job is to find the best hotels in the best locations and get them opened with a big asterisk that says focus on those markets that Virgin Atlantic flies into, focus on those markets that Virgin Voyages sails out of. And so for me, someone brings me a great opportunity in Houston, great, I'll explore it, I'll consider it, we may invest in it, we'll do a project in Houston, but Virgin Atlantic doesn't fly in Houston. But you bring me a project in Boston where Virgin Atlantic flies into, I'm gonna pay more attention to it. I'm gonna focus on it more. And so I've got my list of places like Orlando. We fly 1 million people a year from Europe to Orlando. And then we send them to other hotels. Because in addition to Virgin Atlantic, we have Virgin Holidays, which is our kind of a travel agency, travel conglomerate, which is the largest in Europe. And you combine Virgin Atlantic and Virgin Holidays, it's well over 1 million. And we put these packages together and we send them over and they stay at the Westin, or they stay at the Four Seasons, or they stay at a variety of hotels that aren't ours. And so a big goal for us is to get hotels in those specific markets. We fly 600,000-700,000 a year into Miami. We fly, big numbers that could fill up a hotel almost for the year. And
So I've got a list here. I looked it up. You're in Chicago, Dallas, Vegas, Nashville, New Orleans, New York City, Miami, Denver.
Correct.
And you've got, interestingly enough, your second hotel was in San Francisco and you closed down. What happened?
Is this microphone one? So we had a challenge with our owner. So everyone, I don't know.
Please take the time to
know
explain that.
the real estate of hotels. But the majority of hotels aren't owned by the people that manage them. They're either done in a management agreement or a franchise. We do management agreements. So someone else owns our hotels. We manage them. We may have an investment in them. We may own a certain percentage of them, but we aren't the primary owner of these assets. And so we had an owner in San Francisco that opened a hotel right before COVID. And we were open for a period of time before COVID, and we did our job. We hit our numbers, we hit our goals. Every hotel contract has the ability to fire the management company if they don't perform. So within a year, usually takes about a 2-year process of failing, but if after 2 years, back-to-back years, if you aren't performing, if you don't meet your goals, they can fire you without any penalty. This guy decided, hey, I don't want to have a Virgin anymore, I want to have something else, and he fired us. And he had no right to fire us. And the judge in the court case agreed, and he wrote us a very large check.
Okay.
And so because we did our job and we were meeting our goals, and then COVID happened and it shut us down, and he decided, hey, we're shut down because of COVID, that gives me the right to fire, and it did not. And so it was just a very, very challenging owner from the beginning. We probably should have had better discretion on who our ownership partner was on that project.
So the only two, I think, European hotels you have are in the UK, and as they go from London to Edinburgh, and that's where Virgin has, as you know, in Europe, people move by passenger trains much of the time, and Virgin trains happen to run from London to Edinburgh. That's probably not a coincidence that your hotels were there.
No, it's certainly not. But again, London is where Virgin is based. For those of you who don't know, Virgin Hotels, Virgin everything is based in London. So it's been priority one for us since we opened, and we probably should have had a hotel there 10 years ago. But London is critically important, but it's also an incredibly difficult area to develop new stuff. So our hotel in Edinburgh is a collection of 6 different buildings, some of them hundreds of years old. As one of them is an old church cathedral. That's our meeting space. Now, it's spectacularly beautiful. The developers did a wonderful job, but it's a collection of 5 different buildings that all got created into one hotel experience. And then our project in London was a hotel that we took over and reflagged, because just getting stuff built in London is next to impossible these days.
So give us some feel for the timescale. From the moment you decided you're going into London to opening the doors, how long did it take to put that together?
The London deal was actually pretty quick, because like I said, it's an existing asset. It was operating as a Mondrian, which is another lifestyle boutique hotel. And so we began conversations with the owners of that hotel probably, we'll say 9 months ago. And they came to us because they had the ability to fire their existing operator, or at least pay them off a certain number, because they just weren't getting the job done, and began conversations with us about how we would structure a deal with them, because every deal is structured differently. There's a typical terms. They are always changed, and they're always different for every owner. And this one was a very complicated structuring. I didn't do this deal because I focus entirely on the Americas, but my colleagues that are over in Europe ran through this. But again, within probably 3 months, the deal was done. And then I think we had the thing shut down for just a few weeks to do some very light adjustments and changes. And over time, we're going to continue to upgrade and add things to make it more our personality, but we did, some paint and some new pillows and some new, as they say, new pens and pencils on the side of the bed, and that's a quick turnaround. This one was already a pretty cool hotel. Okay. So it didn't take a ton for it to become our personality. But again, over time, we continue to upgrade it.
So the name Virgin emerged because in the terms that Branson used, it was about new business. And that was what the original term. Obviously, it has some different entry connotations beyond that. But that's where he says it originated. So,
that's the public facing.
What opportunity did Branson see? You said it was because he saw a niche in the market that wasn't being done. What was that niche? How is it defined? What's different?
In airlines or hotels? In airlines or hotels?
In the hotel.
In the hotel space. Just a lot of the same things. A lot of the brands that were looking and feeling the same. Hotel companies like Marriott, which again, I've developed Marriott hotels in my career. They're money-making machines, but they'll have 5 brands that all compete for the same customer. They'll have a St. Regis and a Ritz-Carlton and a Baccarat and an Edition that are all in the same price point, that are all going after the same customer. And that frustrates a lot of developers who own hotels and say, oh, now my own brand company, through their own reservation systems, are all competing for the same customers. And so we created something different that way. We created a different way of, again, packaging relationships with airlines and other travel platforms that we have. But for us, it's all about locality. It's about food and beverage. It's about entertainment. We do a lot of different things in the entertainment space. When you look in the luxury hotel space, hotels typically earn between 20 to 25% of their revenues through F&B, through their restaurants, through their bars. We earn 45 to 60% through F&B because we do food and beverage really, really well, and we do entertainment really well, and we do incredible rooftop experiences. We do great groups. Our group meeting business is head and shoulders above any, and that was when I started with the company, I went to a few, it was like, holy cow, this food is amazing. So it's just raising the level of service, but doing it in a relaxed atmosphere. We don't want to be, and again, I don't want to speak poorly of any other brands, but we don't want to be Ritz-Carlton because there's stuffy, there's certainly a clientele for it, and it's great. It's not who our customers are.
Well, his whole reputation is edgy, different, so on, and it's his persona.
Yeah, and we have a secondary brand called Virgin Limited Edition that we took over, which is ultra luxury, super expensive, and they're all resorts in remote, spectacular locations. But we like to define it as barefoot luxury. So it's not stuffy. It's not where you have to put a jacket on to go to dinner. You can wear your flip-flops to dinner because you're going to spend a ton of money, and it's, our average rate last year with Virgin Limited Edition was north of $2,500 a night.
Say that again.
$2,500 a night.
That's your average room rate?
That was the average room rate across that portfolio.
Holy smoke.
For Virgin Limited Edition. But it's not stuffy. It's not, elitist in any capacity. They're all just beautiful retreats. You were treated really well, but you're not at a Amman.
So you said earlier that one of the keys to your own success was that the operations you worked for had good training programs. What do Virgin Hotels do in that line? I mean, this is outside the norm. How do you find these people? How do you train them? How does it get together?
Well, Virgin Hotels is not like, when I worked for Accor, it was a big company. When I worked for Pricewaterhouse, big companies, big training. Virgin Hotels is a very small company.
Right.
There are a few younger, recent graduate kind of people, but it's mostly made up of senior executive level people because we're just small and nimble and focused. So there's not a huge training program, I'll be honest with you, for Virgin Hotels, except for at the hotel. Now, at the hotel, it's a whole different story. I'm talking more at the corporate level. Okay. At the hotel, there's great training programs and there's great employee programs. We treat our employees incredibly well. And again, that's straight from Richard. That's straight from, differentiating ourselves from other people and other companies is really, really treating our employees incredibly well, paying them well. When I started with this job, again, I'm speaking to a professional, but they offered me my incentives for insurance and all the different things that I am used to spending a lot of money. When I work for Price Waterhouse or you work for these different big companies, you pay a lot of money for insurance and all these things. It was free. And I was like, wow, they treat their senior executives really well. They gave me free insurance. They gave me a $3,000 deductible and then wrote me a check for $3,000 every year. That's amazing. And they're like, no, that's everybody. I'm like, that's all employees? Like, yeah, every employee has that same insurance program. And I was like, dang, but again, that's the focus on treating our employees really well. We know that if we treat our employees incredibly well, they will in turn treat their guests really well. And they'll want to stay, and they'll want to, stay at the program, because that's, again, I'm not an operations expert, but operationally getting and training new people is a very, very expensive process.
So now you have moved into the cruise business, and you have a couple of cruise boats. Are they operating now?
Yeah, we have 3 operating and another one starting next year.
Okay, and so that's a very competitive business.
Yes.
And they're now mega-sized, and they're coming into all kinds of criticism when they land in particular places and overwhelm the area and go back on the ship again. And you've got ports now banning these things, and there's 250 of them sailing the ocean. So my question is, what are Virgin doing differently?
Well, we are not mega ships, for starters. Ours are much smaller.
Okay.
So again, I don't work for Virgin Voyages, and so I'm speaking kind of what I think the truth is, but I believe those big mega ships are 10 to 15,000 rooms. We're probably 3,000 to 4,000 rooms. So we're maybe a third to a quarter the size of the big mega ship, so we don't have quite that impact. We are adults only, which is good and bad. My kids don't like it because they want to go on them because they're really great. But again, we do food incredibly well on our ships. We don't nickel and dime. There's no, like if you go on a Royal Caribbean, which I went on last year, if you wanted to go to the steakhouse, you had to spend a lot more money. If you wanted to go to the sushi restaurant, you had to spend a lot more money. If you wanted to drink, you had to spend a lot more money. At Virgin, it's all included. So there's no upsell if you want to go to the sushi restaurant. There's no upsell if you want to go to the steakhouse. Really, really good entertainment. When we launched our Virgin New York property last year, we had this huge grand opening party that was 1,500 people and DJs and media and everything. Well, we had Virgin Voyages had their new Cirque du Soleil type experience that came as part of that grand opening party and performed their initial, before they went on the cruise ship, they came and did their performance, and it was really cool, and it was like nothing I've seen on a cruise ship before.
Okay, so we move on then from Virgin Hotels, and let's talk a little bit about trends in the field.
Yeah.
First of all, could you explain all of the factors in the development of your major hotels? You've got owners, you've got flags, you've got operating companies, you've got who are the players in putting a Virgin Hotel program together?
Well, it starts first and foremost with an owner, with a developer. Someone has to own a piece of dirt or a building or something like that. That's who drives the initial plan. They typically will hire a consultant, and they'll typically hire an architect even before we get involved to see if the site makes sense, to understand. Again, we're broadening this already, but to see if it fits in with city code, if it makes economic sense, if it's feasible. There's, again, every piece of dirt in this country has laws on what can be built and how it can be built and when it can be built and how tall it can be built and how many parking spaces are required to build. I mean, it's crazy. It's the hardest part of the business. Once you get that figured out, then you come to a brand like myself, then you have a more detailed architectural plan put in place that we drive. We say, hey, this is how many rooms we need. This is how much meeting space we need. This is how much harder house we need. Here's how much space we need for restaurants. Here's how much space we need for for a spa. This is what we want on the roof. This is what we need in parking. And so it's this big, long process of figuring out the Lego project.
Well, all of that is based on the competition in the area.
Yes, on what makes sense for the area, on what other competitors are doing. If you're in New York City, you can afford to build a 60-story, tower and spend, $1 million a key to build a hotel room. You can't do that in Wichita. That doesn't make sense. It won't ever pencil.
Okay, so who are the other actors?
So there's consultants that are doing the feasibility. They're doing the feasibility for the developer. They're doing the feasibility for the lender. There's a lender. There's usually a variety of investors.
Who would be the lender? Would this be some pension fund or some?
Depends on the project. For us, it's typically a bigger, more institutional investor. It's It's life insurance companies, it's Goldman Sachs, Whitehall type groups, or it's local banks. It's sometimes local banks want to be involved. Depends on the municipality you're working in. When we're working on a big project in the Dominican Republic, and the National Bank of the Dominican Republic wants to be involved because they want to make sure this property, is successful, and they want to have that investment and be able to say, hey, that's my project.
Okay, so now you're in putting the investment team together here somewhat. What's the relationship with the flag now? I mean, so I suspect there are situations where you license your brand rather than actually invest in it. Nope.
Well, two different things. Every Virgin company in the world pays a license fee to Virgin. Not every Virgin company in the world is owned by Virgin anymore. Some of them have been sold. There's an airline, Virgin Atlantic is now 50% owned by Delta. What was Virgin America was sold to Alaska Airlines, and they broke their contract and whatever. But every revenue that is generated through any Virgin property pays a license fee to Virgin Group. Now, what we do is we do hotel management agreements only. We do not franchise. We do not only license. We will only manage a hotel that we are a part of.
So you don't franchise?
No.
Okay. That would seem to be limiting in terms of your revenue potential. Why have you made the decision not to franchise? Is it just you don't have the threshold number yet, or what's the philosophy?
We still need to control the experience. So everyone understands, when a franchise exists, which if you went into a Courtyard or a Residence Inn or a Hilton Garden Inn, 99% of those are franchised, which means they just pay Hilton 7% of their revenues to use that flag, and someone else operates. So either the owner operates, or they hire a company like Aimbridge or Concord or many of these other hotel management companies that are not specifically tied to a hotel company, hotel brand. So a third party manages. We want to control the experience completely. We know that if we left it up to Aimbridge to manage our hotel, they wouldn't have this exact same, not saying better or worse, they wouldn't have the exact same focus on it that we would. They wouldn't operate the F&B the same way that we would. They wouldn't have the same system to manage the employees that we have. They probably wouldn't treat their employees the same way that we treat our employees. Again, not saying worse or better, I'm just saying different.
One of the disadvantages you have, being so small, is you don't have a broad-based a booking network. You're very narrow, aren't you?
We were, yes. Now we have 10 Virgins and 10 Virgin limited editions that are open. That helps. But especially with the new focus on being a travel conglomerate, a travel platform, we have great relationships with, again, airlines, cruises, trains. And so one of the things that used to be obviously a big driver in hotel space is loyalty programs. Marriott Bonvoy, Hilton Honors are critical for their hotels. Marriott is successful to a large extent because of their loyalty program. I work for Virgin Hotels. I still stay at Marriott's most of the time because I have hundreds of thousands of points with Marriott, and I have a high level of executive platinum or whatever I am with Marriott, and so I stay at Marriott's because Bonvoy's great. If I'm in a city that doesn't have a Virgin, I stay at a Marriott. And so that used to be a big negative for us. We used to just have 20 million customers where they had 60 million or 80 million or whatever it was. Oh, actually, we had less than that. Well, last year, we created a thing called Virgin Red, which took our loyalty program and Virgin Atlantic's loyalty program and Virgin Voyage's loyalty program and all of the loyalty programs across all Virgin platforms and put them into one loyalty program. And so now we have a loyalty program that's global, it's very large, and they are very loyal customers. Virgin customers are incredibly loyal.
Okay. So can you talk a little bit about trends in equity, debt, investment?
Yep.
What are some of the things that are happening?
Well, since COVID, it's been a tough time to be in the hotel space from an investment and real estate perspective. Obviously, tons of people lost a lot of money. Hotels lost a lot of value with COVID. When they were shut down, they obviously weren't generating revenue. It was a really tough time. And even though we've come back as an industry and most major markets, especially in this country, are booming, making more revenue than they've ever made, it's still an incredibly difficult development and investment scenario for the country. Interest rates are high. They're coming down, which is great. But over the last 2 to 3 years, they've been very high, which have caused transactions to be very rare, which has caused investments and development to be incredibly difficult. When you used to, pay a 3% interest rate on your mortgage for your hotel, for your $400 million hotel, when it's 8% or 10% or 12%, it doesn't work.
Within a community, does it matter where you locate? I mean, so long as you've got a Virgin hotel somewhere. I mean, I was long ago working with La Quinta. In the La Quinta development person said, I don't need a map to find a La Quinta. If I drive to the town and I don't see it, it's in the wrong place. And now for you, that doesn't matter. Is that right? I mean, you can be anywhere in the town.
No.
No?
No, not for us. And I'll point to Dallas as the biggest. I hate that this is on TV, but our hotel in Dallas is in the design district of Dallas, which is a really cool up and coming area. It was supposed to have come by now. It's still up and coming. COVID put everything on pause. It slowed down. There's a ton of stuff going on right now, tons of development. It's all coming, but it didn't come near as fast as it needed to. And so even though we're just across the freeway from downtown, there is a good drop off from people that are in downtown and uptown that don't want to spend the extra 10 minutes to Uber to our hotel.
So the vibes of the city have to meet the vibes of your hotel. It's not so much a geographical location.
It's vibes, but
it's the area.
It's demand generators as well.
Okay. So where do you see the growth now in hotels? There are a whole range of classes here. You're obviously at the top end of the luxury. And I remember listening to a gentleman from Four Seasons one time, the Canadian owner of that, saying that their aspiration was to be the highest rate in the city. I think you've probably usurped that role now.
In certain markets, yeah.
Where do you see the major growth now? I mean, we've got luxury, middle of the road, self-service, full service. What was the growth?
The growth recently has been in extended stay. The last, 3 years, we'll say. Extended stay has just exploded, especially in the mid-scale. Excuse me.
Say mid-scale. Give me some feel for those brands.
So Choice Hotels has a few of those brands. I'm drawing a blank that they are because I haven't worked there in a few years. They launched a new brand last year to kind of get even more upscale. They have one I stayed here at one of them a few years ago when I came for a football game. It was like $70 a night. It was rough. But it's, again, there's a working class. There's a group that needs those kind of assets. Those extended stay ones are great for construction companies and for, groups that are coming into a market for 6 months to a year to build stuff, to design stuff. Those kind of hotels, because they're bigger rooms, they got little kitchenettes. Those are great, and they've done incredibly well. And so that's where a ton of investment money's gone to. They're also really, really cheap to build. So you can build a hotel for $7 million. My hotels cost anywhere from $250 to $750 million to build. You can build one of those for $7 million, and the returns are like 45%, 50%. And so they used to just be, individuals building these kind of hotels, and then all of a sudden the big institutions saw them and they're like, yep. And so they were signing packs to do 40 or 50 of these hotels at a time. And so that, for the last 3 or 4 years, has been. And so Choice has 3 or 4 brands of those now. Marriott launched a mid-scale extended stay brand that's the hottest thing going right now. Hilton did the same thing. I was just at the lodging conference in Scottsdale 6 weeks ago, and that's still where a ton of growth is happening. And now that Marriott and Hilton are full force in IHG, the Choices and the Wyndhams that have held that market for so long are all starting to lose their market share. But that's been the hottest brand going. At the complete other side of the spectrum, the ultra luxury experience has been booming and is somewhat still happening, which is surprising, especially in resort type destinations.
When you look at the wealth cohorts since, if you like, the original Reagan cuts back in the 1980s, and you see the cohort which has benefited, it's the top 1%. I mean, they have got their real terms income increased by about 200% over that period of time.
Yep.
The top 5%, the outside 1%, grew at something like 10%, 15% over that period of 30 years, and the rest didn't do anything. They stayed pretty much. This whole business had trickled down. It's not borne out at all by the income levels. And so that cohort of extremely wealthy people fits your niche very well.
I'm working on a Virgin Limited Edition here in Texas at a ranch type experience. And as part of my research, I was just studying. I was like, it feels like in the last 4 or 5 years, just the number of millionaires that have moved into Texas, whether they're coming in from California or they're just being created through all these huge companies that have exploded in Texas since COVID. And in Dallas, the number of millionaires since 2021 has increased 75%. In Houston, it's increased 60%, and in Austin, it's increased 55%. Number of millions in just 3 years.
I think sometimes we lose track of the scale of Texas. If I look at the Metroplex, we glibly talk about it as an area, but there's 72 cities in the Metroplex. There's almost 8 million people, which is double the population of the state of Oklahoma in the Metroplex. So you've really got your own little universe in there, not so little. Substantive uniform and a lot of wealth in it.
Yep. And so that's led to, like I said, the development of this ultra luxury and very high luxury projects all over the world. What's really driving those is residential. Branded ultra luxury residential is still a very, very, very hot platform. We've got 10 or 12 of these under development because it just help deals make sense. When you go to, we're working on a big, super tall building in Miami. If it was just the hotel, it wouldn't make sense because construction has gotten so expensive. But because we're going to build 300 condos, they're going to be priced at $1,500 to $1,800 a square foot. It brings the basis down. It makes the project make sense. And so, for example, in New York City, Aman, which is the most luxurious hotel brand in the world, by far, and they're just beautiful and spectacular. They just opened a hotel and residential project in New York City 2 years ago. They just sold a building. They sold a residence there for north of $12,000 a foot.
Good stretches.
A foot.
In College Station, we're almost up to $200 a foot now.
And that's great. I know, and that's great. So how there's so many of these people that can afford this much is still shocking to me. But again, there's probably 6 new projects in New York City that are probably in the more of the 6,000 to 8,000 a foot range. But given
the desirability of having a Virgin hotel in your city, I suspect you have quite a bit of leverage with the cities on creating incentives for you to come. What would be some of those incentives that the cities would offer you?
The most common incentive is kind of a tax rebate, which happens for every level of hotel, not just the luxury segment. But if you've got a good city that wants growth and wants to encourage growth, and granted, not every city in America is like that, and these days most aren't, but if you're working with a city that wants to continue to grow and wants to have more hotel rooms, they'll come in and they'll offer, hey, for the first 20 years of your project, you don't have to pay taxes.
That means not property tax and not hotel occupancy tax.
Correct.
Okay, that's huge.
It can be.
Okay.
It can be, yeah. Or they'll loan you money based on the taxes that you will pay.
Okay, so it would be something like a tax increment district.
Yep.
Where you get your money back.
Right.
Okay, so you talked briefly about hotel programming at Virgin. There's some feel for what you do at Virgin Hotels is different from other hotels.
Again, a big focus on restaurant space. So we will program more restaurant space. We will program great rooftop pool bar type experiences. We will program
and this is
entertainment.
This isn't for special groups. This is
if you're in a good downtown urban type location. Yes. Okay. Again, everything is a math equation. Everything's a math problem, so everything has to make sense financially for it to work. But we start off with the same program or with the same idea of a program. We're putting music venues in our properties. We're doing...
what do you mean by music venues?
Like small places for concerts and speakeasies. And in our Nashville hotel, which is awesome, there are 4 music venues in the hotel.
Wow.
We got in the basement, there's a speakeasy. that can hold like 50 to 100 people, has a cute little bar, and it's dark, and Johnny Cash's daughter helped design the interiors of it and put a bunch of his, memorabilia in it, and it's this really cool little spot that, when we had an event there, 6 months ago, and a girl came and was singing. I was like, she's really talented. Like, oh, she's a Grammy Award-winning artist. I don't know who she is because I don't love country music, but that's just we'll just call this Grammy Award-winning, and she'll love to perform at our hotels. And so then we got a rooftop experience that, Good Morning America will come every now and then and do concerts on our rooftop pool because you can cover the pool and create a great stage. We've got a kind of a venue similar to this. That's sometimes a music venue, sometimes it's a corporate, corporate training facility. Sometimes it's for great groups and meetings. And so we're just trying to find flexible ways to use every square inch of the hotel to generate revenue.
So much of that stuff is highly visual. Yep. And easy to publicize. I suspect you maximize that. I suspect that, for example, local media are praising some of this stuff. Yeah. And so social publicity, media, which the media give you rather than paid advertising, is probably what you thrive on. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, and so talk a little bit about your social media efforts in the budget hotels.
I know that we focus on it. I know that we do it well. I know that we have really talented people and really talented companies. It's not my expertise to know exactly what it is, but we'll go back to Richard being the greatest promoter in the world. Every deal we do, every project we do, the developer's like, when can I meet Richard? When do I get a chance to meet Richard? When can Richard get involved? Can Richard invest? Lots of those kind of questions. What we do promise is that Richard will show up at either or the groundbreaking or the grand opening. And when he shows up at the grand opening, he does spectacularly amazing things. And his social media and his daughter's social media, who's kind of the brains now, act like they're there for the next 3 months. And so they do an incredible job at promotion. He is still the king of promoters. When we had our New York City grand opening, his plan was to rappel off the roof of this 40-story building in New York City.
He's 70 years old.
He's 72. Yeah, he's in his 70s. He was going to dress up like a window washer, rappel off the roof, and show up at the ground floor to cut the scissors to do the grand opening. We had Lin-Manuel Miranda's new Broadway show, New York, New York, before it had launched, performed on the ground floor. We shut down Broadway, performed New York, New York, and then he went and filmed Jimmy Kimmel. And so that's just the kind of promoter that he is. And again, you can't, we do valuations of those promotions. We say, here's how much and we don't do it, outside companies do it. But like him showing up and being a part of our grand opening for New York, I think had a value of $40-something million of just additional value to that project because of every news agency wanting to cover that, every, LinkedIn covering it, Twitter, Instagram, just the broad scope of Richard Branson being a part of this experience blows it up everywhere. So far more than we could spend personally to do it is the value that he brings to our project.
And he brings with him his own bunch of celebrities.
Oh, absolutely.
As he comes on through.
Absolutely.
So I don't know, this is hitting you a bit cold, Tim, but are there any decisions you've made in your professional life which reflect you'd like to have back? I mean, is there things that haven't gone the way you anticipated, perhaps
sure.
You've learned from?
Yeah, I mean, there's deals that fell apart that I wish I would have done differently. There are people that I trusted that I wish I wouldn't have trusted. Professionally, the one that I point to, and some people will understand this, some won't. Back in my consulting days, I was hired by a guy named Mike Kaiser to do a feasibility study for a golf resort in Oregon called Bandon Dunes, which, for those of you who don't know, Bandon Dunes is the mecca of golf. It is the epicenter. It's 5 golf courses. It's the most successful. It's launched Mike Kaiser to do this 6 or 7 times. In other parts of the country, it's just the most successful golf resort ever built. I told him not to build it. I went and I visited, toured it with him. It's a beautiful property on the bluffs of Oregon, but it took me like 2 hours to get there from the airport. I was like, it's beautiful, but no one will come. It's too hard to get here. You won't be successful. And he's like, you're the third person to tell me that. I don't care. I'm doing it anyway. And he was right, and I was wrong.
Okay. You don't have an internship from
We do.
Oh, you do? So
We do. I'll put an asterisk on that. The only one that I've seen, I think I saw one at our corporate office, and I know we had an internship in our legal group, in our legal team in Miami. Our corporate office is in Miami.
Okay. Could you conclude by offering some advice to our audience? If you were in their shoes today,
Yep.
and you had an interest in hospitality,
Yep.
how would you break in? What areas would you target?
Okay.
How would you go about it?
Yep. The first one I mentioned already. I love the broad spectrum of experiences I had in a consulting company. There are big public accounting consulting companies like the ones I work for. There are hospitality-specific consulting companies. There are a variety of opportunities to go and work for one of those kind of companies and see a lot. What I had in my mind, what I was going to do in college, was far from what ended up happening at a variety of stages. So your career is obviously constantly changing. I would say see as much as you can, whether it's internships, whether it's jobs with do an internship with a consulting company if you can, or if you want to do operations at a hotel, go work at a hotel. Go do an internship at a hotel and experience it. See if it's what you really want to do. And even at a hotel, there's 15 different parts of a hotel that operate. You need sales and marketing, you need HR, you need food and beverage, you need housekeeping. There's so many different things. See more than what you think you want. Like, see if there's if you know what you want, great, but see as much as you can. See all the different facets of it and figure out which one works for you. And take college more seriously. I didn't.
Are there any other things you'd like to add that we haven't touched on at this point?
Well, what I just was saying, I mentioned this the last time I spoke with you. Do not take advantage of what you have in front of you right now. I wish I would have done more when I was in college. I went back and got an MBA because, I came out of here without a clear understanding as to what I wanted to do with my life. You have everything at your disposal here at A&M. Do not take it for granted. Take advantage of it. Take it seriously. You have great, talented professors and teachers that are dedicated to making you helping you become successful. So take advantage of it.
Dr. King, could you join us, please? Tim, thank you. This has been a really enlightening conversation, and we're very appreciative.
Of course, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Taking the time to join us.
Always surreal to come back to my alma mater.
Okay. We'll be giving you your professor for a day beautiful certificate a little bit later. Okay, I've just been told. So what was about to happen was I was going to give Tim this glorious, not with quite Richard Branson fireworks, but, so that one's a little bit postponed. But look, I found that conversation thrilling. As Gen Ys, you've sat through a whole hour with no social media, with no video, with no, and I think that Tim has well and truly kept us very informed. The way he talks about real estate, investment, hotel brands, Dr. Pepper's, Choice, Virgin, we've ranged very far and wide in this conversation. I love the advice late on about the importance of internships to you all, to this engagement with the industry, to networking, to meeting the right people. We're so proud that as a good fighting Aggie, you're out there as one of the leaders in our field, and people are coming to you saying, please come and work for us, Tim. So thank you all students for joining us. I know it's getting late in the semester. You've got many presentations, you've got many assignments. We're really happy that you joined us today. Dr. Eden, thank you for bringing your class to us. Dr. Eden's a fabulous teacher, and the fact you're all here today is a great testimony to that. And our irrepressible Dr. Crompton in conversation. Thank you, Dr. Crompton. Tim, really appreciated this today, and please give a big Aggie warm thanks to the